High in the mist-covered peaks, where the wind whispered forgotten secrets, lies a treasure guided for centuries by the mountain spirits. Many have dared to find it, and none have returned. Tonight, you will walk the paths they feared through haunted forests, across treacherous cliffs, and into the very hearts of legend. But beware, every step draws you closer to the riches beyond imaginations, or a fate from which there is no escape. Stay with me, because the moment you think you've guessed the ending, the mountain will prove you wrong. The hidden treasure of the mountain spirit, a dangerous quest.
Long ago, in a small village at the edge of a great forest, there lived a boy named Kofi. Kofi was known for his kindness, but also for his curiosity that often got him into trouble. The elders told many stories about the mountains that stood tall beyond the forest. They said the mountains were home to spirits who guarded a treasure that no human had ever seen. Most people laughed at the tales, but Kofi believed every single word. One evening, Kofi sat by the fire listening to his grandmother's soft voice. She spoke of golden drums, silver bowls, and a diamond so big it could light the whole sky. But she warned that the spirits who owned these treasures hated greedy hearts. Only the pure, brave, and selfless could even come close to the hidden cave. Kofi's heart began to beat faster, for he dreamed of helping his poor village. The next morning, Kofi told his best friend Ama about his plan. Ama was a smart girl, quick with her hands, and even quicker with her mind. At first, she laughed and shook her head, saying it was just a story. But when Kofi spoke about using the treasure to build schools and feed the hungry, she agreed to go. They promised to return before the next full moon. They packed roasted maize, watering clay pots, and a small drum for music. Ama also carried her mother's woven mat for sleeping under the stars. Kofi took his father's olds to fight, but to guide them through tall grass. Before leaving, they knelt before Kofi's grandmother, who placed her wrinkled hand on their heads. "Remember," she whispered, "the spirits test your heart before they show their treasure." The forest was alive with sounds, birds singing, monkeys chattering, and leaves whispering in the wind. The children walked carefully, stepping over roots as thick as snakes. They passed streams where fish darted like flashes of silver. Once a large lizard ran across their path, making Ama jump and grab Kofi's arm. They laughed together, but deep inside, they both felt a growing fear. By the third day, they reached the edge of the forest where the mountains rose like sleeping giants. Mist curled around the peaks, making them look mysterious and far away. A narrow path wound upward, lined with strange flowers that seemed to glow faintly. Ama bent to pick one, but Kofi stopped her, remembering his grandmother's warning. "These may be the spirit's eyes watching us," he said softly, as they climbed higher. The air grew cooler and thinner. Their feet ached, but the sight of the world below pushed them onward. Villages looked like tiny dots, rivers like silver threads. They felt proud to be so far from home, yet also very small under the vast sky. Then a sudden cry echoed through the mountains, freezing them in place. From behind a boulder stepped a tall man dressed in animal skins. His hair was as white as clouds, and his eyes shone like moonlight. Why do you climb the mountain of the spirit? He asked in a deep voice. Kofi bowed and told him about the treasure and their wish to help their village. The man nodded slowly and said, You will face 3 tests before you reach it. The first test is the path of shadows, the old man continued. It is a road where the sun never shines, and you may hear voices calling your name. If you answer them, you will be lost forever. Ama shivered, but Kofi held her hand tightly. Where is this path? Kofi asked, his voice steady. The man pointed to a dark opening between 2 rocks. They thanked him and stepped inside, the air turning cold at once. The ground felt soft, like walking on moss, and strange shapes moved in the corners of their eyes. Then came the voices, soft, sweet, and familiar, calling Kofi. Ama bit her lip, but they walked on without replying. The path seemed endless, yet they kept moving. Once, Ama tripped and almost spoke, but Kofi squeezed her hand to remind her. Finally, they saw a light ahead and ran toward it. They burst out into sunshine, gasping with relief. The first test was over. Before them lay a small valley filled with crystal-clear pools. The water sparkled under the sun, and they were so thirsty from the long walk. A stone figure stood by the largest pool, shaped like a woman, holding a jug. This was the second test, the pool of truth. To drink. They had to speak their deepest truth aloud. Kofi stepped forward first. He closed his eyes and said, I am afraid I may not be brave enough to finish this journey. The stone woman's eyes glowed, and the water rippled gently. He drank, and it was the sweetest water he had ever tasted. Dadama then stepped forward, her voice trembling. I am afraid of losing Kofi, she confessed, tears filling her eyes. The stone woman nodded slowly, and Ama drank from the pool. The water felt warm and comforting, like a mother's hug. When they looked up, the valley had changed into a narrow, rocky path leading higher. They knew they had passed the second test. The climb became harder, and clouds began to gather. The wind howled around them, carrying whispers they could not understand. They reached a ledge where the ground fell away into a deep gorge. A single rope bridge swayed dangerously over it. This was the third and final test, the bridge of choice. Halfway across, a voice boomed from the clouds above. Choose the treasure you seek, or the safety of the one beside you. At that moment, the planks beneath Ama's feet began to crack. Kofi saw her slip and grabbed her arm with all his strength. Without thinking, he shouted, I choose A. The bridge became solid under their feet, and the wind died down. The clouds parted, revealing the old man from before. He smiled, his eyes glowing brighter than ever. You have chosen well, for the greatest treasure is a loyal heart. He pointed toward a cave hidden in the cliff wall. Inside the cave, the walls shone with gold and jewels. In the center stood a chest carved with ancient symbols. When Kofi opened it, they saw not coins, but seeds, hundreds of them, glowing softly. These are seeds of life, said the old man. Plant them, and your village will never go hungry again. Kofi and AMA filled their bags with the seeds. The journey down the mountain felt lighter. Though their legs were tired, they passed the forests, the streams, and the glowing flowers once more. When they reached the village, the people gathered around in wonder. Kofi's grandmother smiled, tears running down her cheeks. They planted the seeds, and soon the land bloomed with fruit, vegetables, and grain that no one in the village went hungry again. The people built schools, repaired homes, and sang songs of thanks to the spirits. Kofi and Amma never spoke of the treasure in gold, for they had found something far greater. And so the legend of the hidden treasure of the mountain spirits lived on. That night, as the village celebrated, Kofi couldn't sleep. He sat outside, watching the moon float above the mountains. Somehow, he felt the journey wasn't truly over. The wind seemed to carry a faint whisper from the mountain's direction. Gift taken must be guarded, the voice said. The next morning, Ama came running to Kofi's hut. Her face was pale, and she held a basket of withered leaves. These came from the new garden, she said. Kofi's heart sank. How could seeds from the spirits fail so soon? They decided to return to the mountains to find out. The elders begged them not to go, fearing the spirits might be angry. But Kofi and Ama knew the village depended on the harvest. They packed food, water, and the last few glowing seeds. The journey felt heavier this time, as if the mountain knew they were coming. The forest was darker, the streams quieter. Halfway up the slope, they met the old man again. He looked troubled, his white hair whipping in the wind. "The seeds have not failed," he said, "but a shadow has touched your land." He told them of a spirit named the Serpent of Hunger. Nziuka stole blessings from those who did not protect them. To defeat, the old man said, you must bring light into her lair. He handed them a lantern made of crystal. This will burn with the truth in your hearts. But he warned that the serpent could take the form of someone they loved. If you hesitate, all will be lost. They climbed until they reached a cave that breathed warm, foul-smelling air. The entrance was shaped like the mouth of a giant snake. Ama gripped Kofi's hand, her knuckles white. They stepped inside, the crystal lantern glowing faintly. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. It was Kofi's grandmother. Kofi? Ama, the figure said, come back home. You don't belong here. Kofi's eyes filled with tears. Her voice was exactly the same. Ama reached for the lantern, whispering, it's not her. Kofi hesitated, his heart torn between love and doubt. Then the figure's eyes flashed red, and he knew the truth. He held the lantern high, and its light grew brighter. The false grandmother hissed, her skin turning into shimmering scales. The cave shook as Nezuka's true form appeared, huge, black, and coiled. Her fangs dripped with venom, and her voice was like thunder. You cannot take back what I have claimed, she roared. Ama stepped forward, holding the lantern steady. The seeds belong to the people, not to you, she shouted. The crystal flame blazed until the cave was filled with golden light, and Zoka shrieked, her body twisting in pain. Then, with a final hiss, she vanished into smoke. The ground stopped shaking, and the cave grew quiet. The lantern's light dimmed until it was only a gentle glow. In its place, where Nezuka had been, lay a basket of fresh glowing seeds. They were larger, brighter, and warmer than before. Kofi and Ama knew They had restored the blessing. On the way down, the forest seemed alive again. Birds sang, and the streams danced over the rocks. Even the air smelled sweeter. The old man appeared one last time, smiling proudly. "You have proven your hearts are stronger than fear," he said. He told them the seeds would never wither as long as they were shared freely. "They are not just food," he added. "They are a reminder that the greatest treasure is kindness." Then he faded into the mist, leaving only the sound of the wind. Kofi and Aema walked the last stretch in silence, thinking about his words. When they reached the village, the people cheered and sang. They planted the new seeds in the center of the village square. Within days, green shoots began to sprout faster than any crop before. Soon, there were fruits, vegetables, and grains in abundance. No one went hungry again. Children laughed as they ran through the gardens. Mothers filled baskets with food, humming joyful songs. The elders sat in the shade, telling the story of the brave children. Kofi's grandmother often smiled at him with quiet pride. Ama's mother wove new clothes for them from bright cloth. But Kofi and Ame knew something deeper. They had seen the spirits faced fear and chosen each other over greed. The mountain had taught them that true wealth was in unity and that blessings must be protected, not just received. They never forgot the weight of the lantern in their hands. Every year, on the night of the full moon, they climbed the mountain again, not for treasure, but to thank the spirits. They would leave baskets of fruits and flowers at the old man's stone altar. Sometimes they swore they heard his voice in the wind. "Keep your hearts pure, and the mountain will keep its promise." The village grew into a thriving town over the years. Travelers came from far away to see the miracle gardens. Some offered gold or jewels in exchange for the seeds, but the elders refused to sell them, remembering the old man's words, "These seeds are for sharing, not for selling," they said firmly. One season, a drought came, drying the rivers and killing crops in nearby lands. People from other villages arrived, thin and tired. Without hesitation, Kofi and Amma welcomed them, gave seeds, food, and shelter until the rains returned. The gardens never failed them. The strangers stayed, and the town became even larger. Different languages and songs filled the air. Children of all kinds played together, planting and harvesting. The market was full of bright fabrics, spices, and laughter. The mountain spirit's gift had united more than one village. As Kofi and Ama grew older, their story became legend. Children gathered at their feet to hear about the path of shadows. They shivered at the tale of the serpent of hunger. And they gasped when Kofi told them about the glowing seeds. Every child left with a promise to protect the blessings they were given. One quiet evening, Ama sat with Kofi on the hill outside the village. The sun was setting behind the mountains, turning the sky orange and gold. "Do you ever wonder if the old man was watching us all along?" she asked. Kofi smiled softly. "I know he was." They sat in silence, listening to the distant rush of the river. The air was cool, and the smell of ripe fruit drifted from the gardens. It was hard to believe the land had once been dry and empty. A leaned her head on Kofi's shoulder. Maybe the real treasure was the journey itself, she whispered. Years later, when they were very old, the people built a small shrine on the hill. It faced the mountain and was surrounded by flowers from the gardens. Travelers would stop there to pray for courage and kindness. Stories of Kofi and Ema's quests were carved into the shrine's walls. Their lantern, now dim, rested inside as a sacred relic. Even after they passed on, the seeds continued to grow. Every planting season began with a song in their honor. Children danced, women clapped, and men beat drums. The people believed Kofi and Ema's spirits walked among the fields. The harvest was always plentiful. From time to time, a faint mist would rise from the mountain. Some said they saw the shadow of a tall man with white hair. Others swore they heard the hiss of a snake fading into the wind. The elders would nod knowingly. "The spirits are watching," they'd say. And so the lesson was passed down through generations. Blessings must be earned, shared, and guarded with care. Greed brings shadows, but kindness brings light. The mountain spirits test the heart before they give their gifts, and those who pass become part of the mountain's story forever. The village became known far and wide as the land of the living seeds. No traveler left hungry, and no child went without learning. Songs about the quests were sung at weddings and festivals. The shrine's lantern would sometimes glow faintly at night. People took it as a sign that the spirits still approved. Some brave young ones tried to follow Kofi and Ema's path. Most turned back at the path of shadows. A few reached the pool of truth and learned something about themselves, but none had faced Nzoka again. Perhaps she still waits in the deep dark for another heart to test. And yet, no one feared her completely, for they knew that courage, truth, and love could defeat any darkness. Parents taught their children the old chant, light in the heart, light in the hand, light will guide you through the land. The chant echoed in the fields during every harvest, so the hidden treasure of the mountain spirits was never lost. It lived in the gardens, in the songs, and in the people's hearts. And though Kofi and Ema's bodies were gone, their names remained.